always get it right. Ask the Planman. Finance, insurance, and more.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Planman. Everything you want to know about insurance, finance, and more, but we're afraid to ask. I'm your host, Bruce Weinstein, and each week we bring you different topics of conversation regarding financial, insurance, investment-related topics, and sometimes a little bit more. Today, we're going to be talking with Andrea Trout and Randy King, who are in the franchise space with Prime IV. We're going to discuss with them the importance of health and wellness, but also give you some more insight onto the do's and don'ts and the pros and cons when it comes to franchising. Please help me welcome Andrea and Randy. Welcome to the show. Andrea, I'm going to toss it to you first. How did you and Randy get involved in franchising and originally meet?
So Randy and I met a while ago, 2005, actually, at a real estate networking meeting. We were in a different state at the time, and we met and became friends. And then about 2 years later, we started to do one real estate deal together. And from there, it just kind of spiraled, and we've been business partners ever since in some capacity. Obviously, now we're in a different space, but it just kind of shifted that way.
And how did you get involved in franchising? What was your first franchise and how did that go?
Well, this is our first franchise. We're new to the space, so we've learned. Right. That's okay. No, perfect. And we got involved. So I have always loved health and wellness. It's been like my sister and I are very into that ourselves, for ourselves. And it just came across from a friend of mine and Randy's, who's also in the real estate world, who said, oh, I'm going to do this franchise with a new company. The company, she was their first franchisee. And I said, let's take a look at that. Of all places they were in was Colorado Springs, which is where Randy and I used to live. We did not know the people that started the franchise, but that's where it was based out of. And it was just pure coincidence. And so we looked at it, we liked it, and we ended up not only opening our own franchise, as you know, in Delray Beach, Florida, but we actually own the territory as area representatives for the brand for Southeast Florida. So Jupiter down to the Keys is our territory. And we help other franchisees as they buy a Prime IV franchise. We help them get up and running, help them operate that whole kind of like starting process. And then, of course, supporting them as they operate. That's our job as area representatives.
So the business or the franchise is Prime IV, like the number 4, but an IV like you put in your arms. And Randy, so what led you to get into the franchising side of things versus maybe just starting your own business? What was the appeal of a franchise? Why would my listener want to contemplate paying into or buying into a franchise? What's the benefit there for them?
Yeah, a good question. Let me back up just a little bit. You know, with Andrea and I partnering, that was the real estate world, and we had pretty much wound it down. So the introduction by the friend, to us was with a franchise. But I was very comfortable with the area we were going into. Andrea's always tried to keep me on the straight and narrow in terms of health. But I think it was the business opportunity in the space that we both looked forward to. And so it was presented to us for us to take a look at. And so naturally it's looking at, okay, do we want to go into this line of business as well as, with this franchise? So while we were evaluating that, naturally the question comes up, would we rather break off, on our own and do it independently or take advantage of the franchise? So it was just a matter of how it was presented to us. Now, in terms of starting your own business versus the franchise, I think the simplest way to think of it is the franchise simply takes care of certain things for you, so you don't have to invent the entire wheel yourself. You don't have to start from scratch. But it's still a business. It's just a method of doing that business.
So let me touch on 2 things before I forget. So one was the evaluation of what the business is, and you're having an interest, desire, or enjoyment of being in that space. So I think the listener, if you're looking to get into a franchise, and let's say it's, Liberty Tax, and you have no math, no skills, you don't have interest in doing bookkeeping and tax planning and stuff like that, then that's probably not the right franchise for you to pursue if you have a lack of interest in that, right? If some of them are like oil mechanic, Jiffy Lube type competitors. Again, if you're not into autos and that end of the business, then why are you getting into it? So that is an important part of the decision making, is what exactly is it doing as a business, and then what your interest or passion is. The other day we did a show and we talked about the two of the most important days in a person's life is the day they're born and the day they understand or figure out their why. And so your why at this point in your life is Prime IV, right? You found your why in that capacity versus, I'll say, Liberty Tax. But then the second piece you said here, Randy, was a benefit of being and going into a franchise is, and I'll put my words on it a little bit, is you don't know what you don't know, and they've kind of made the mistakes in front of you, and they've come up with a cookbook of how to do things, and it's easy for you and it's turnkey for you to implement that, whether you have one store or 50. It's follow the recipe. Here's the cookbook. Is that fair?
Yeah, very fair. Yeah, exactly that. They're providing you the templates, they're providing you the cookbook, and you follow this recipe and you should end up with, as it's pictured, right?
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you're still left with, what business am I in? And I think we both love the business that we're in, what we're able to provide for the clients, for the customers when they come in. And the franchise is just a vehicle to help you get there faster, or maybe take care of marketing planning or certain kinds of templates that simply help you do that business, as opposed to inventing all of those parts yourself.
I've heard in conversation what we'll call it a caution zone in the franchise space is one franchise location, you're buying yourself a job. You need multiple locations to get yourself to that higher levels, and certainly building out your teams, you being less hands-on. I mean, you guys are everywhere. I see you all the time. You're very big in the community down here. You're promoting it and you're working your cause, and as you should. But if you have 15 locations, you can't do that, right? And so having a team behind you where you can supplant them, have managers, have whatever you call them in your space. So how do you overcome that challenge? Because for me, I've never been able to scale because I find nobody does it as good as me, and I'm not going to turn the reins over. How have you guys, or Andrea, how have you addressed that so far?
I mean, I think that's a dilemma for any business owner that wants to scale. As you said, so there's a few things that we've learned along the way. One is they're never going to do it as good as you or like you would do it. Sometimes they might actually do it better, and you were the one in the way as the business owner. We've learned that. And sometimes you have to let go of.
That's good. That's good to.
Go ahead.
That's okay. Good to recognize. So go ahead.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And then the other part of it is you sometimes just have to let go that there's something called good enough, meaning somebody's going to do it good enough, and it doesn't have to be to the level that I'm going to do it. And you absolutely have to pick and choose what those things are that can be good enough. Like with my team, the thing that we really pride ourselves on is customer service or client relations, right? Because I mean, we're seen as a luxury item. I don't view it that way. It's just because it's new and people aren't aware of it. Why would you ever go do that? Get vitamins through an IV versus just take a pill, which everybody's trained to do. So the customer relations and experience of it is our number one thing in terms of them having an amazing experience, so that not only are they getting the benefits of the vitamins and the hydration, but they felt like they were taken care of at a level that's different. That's not something I'm ever going to say you can be good enough at. Okay. Versus certain other things, like maybe the certain things aren't done quite right on a checklist. Okay, fine. Right. So you make those judgment calls as a business owner, and you have conversations about what outcome are you driving to. So as long as we're achieving that outcome, how they get there, sometimes it can be different than how I would do it, and that's okay.
Well, being receptive to other people's input is important. You don't want to be dismissive of them. They want to be heard as well. And sometimes there is a nugget in there that you can glean. So having that communication, I would think, is imperative. Randy, go ahead. I think you're about to say something.
No, I was just going to say, something Andrea said there is really, really important. Maybe we can man the front desk a little better. Maybe we can do the inventory a little better. It's kind of like that is not the most important thing. What she said is maybe our role is to hold fast to the picture of what we're trying to build. This is what we want to have happen. We want this kind of an experience for the client coming through. And so now the role becomes find the right people. Find the people that can believe in that also and work towards that goal while we hold up that picture of what are we trying to accomplish. As long as either of us are trying to accomplish the actual tasks within the business, we'll never grow to the second or third or a bigger, picture.
Sure. I'm thinking, as you're saying things, Andrea, on the customer experiences, it's the Ritz-Carlton, right? That Ritz-Carlton experience, which is known for its ultimate in attention to detail, luxury, and the experience, so that when you go there for the first time, you're blown away with how well they know who you are, what you need, what you want, how you're taken care of. Like, everybody knows your name. You can be greeted, "Hi, Randy," "Hi, Miss Trout." Like, it's a different experience, and that's their SOP. That's their standard operating procedure. And if their staff doesn't follow that, I'm sure they'll be replaced pretty quickly. So I guess the question is for you. I don't know how collaborative you are on the hiring side, whether it's Andrea's side or Randy's side, but we're in this the depths of the great resignation because of COVID, where so many people have left their jobs, got buried in staying at home, sought ways to be more self-efficient, work from home, or just not have to go back into a workplace. So how are you meeting those challenges of getting the quality people to do what you want? See, I didn't pick one of you to answer that. See,
Andrea, go ahead, and then I'll. Okay. So I think one of the benefits of a healthcare worker is I think there's something innate inside of them that they went into that business. They went into the health profession because there's some kind of desire on helping other people, and they chose to do it through the medical field. And so what we're finding is it's a break from being beat up in a hospital. They went through so much through COVID and everything else. Some of the comments from them, at the end of the day or the end of the week is they feel good about being able to take their knowledge and their skills and expertise and help someone who came through the door looking for help. And that's been unusual for them. And they like that.
So let me clarify, because again, I've experienced it, but the listener may have missed the pointer. You predominantly hire nurses. True?
Yes.
So that's what you're referring to here, is that you're bringing on nurses that are getting out of the frying pan, if you will, of what went on with COVID and the chaos there, and they're coming into an office suite environment with luxury chairs and services, and they don't have that hecticness, that their lives aren't at risk, being exposed to sick people, and yet they're still administrating and maybe following that Hippocratic oath of, serve their patient. Is that kind of?
Yeah. And I think something about that, Andrea works with our spa manager, Liz, and the two of them do the screening and the interviewing and stuff. Every now and then they might ask, how do I feel about, that? But what's interesting is a lot of the staff, a lot of the personnel have gotten, I don't want to use the word, not protective, but they know who they would like to work with. They have to be able to work as a team, on working with a client coming in there. So quite a few of the folks we've got are actually from referrals from our own people. They've worked with this person and they've asked Andrea to take a look or, introduce them into the spa and stuff. And that really helps because we're getting people that are very interested in working in that space.
Andrea? And one other thing I'll mention too, a lot of franchises, because right now, Prime IV, there's about 40 franchises open in the country. And a good percentage of those are owned and operated by RNs or nurse practitioners or even MDs. Like there's a couple in another state and she's an MD and he's a nurse and they own and operate it themselves. So, and that kind of goes back to the other thing we're talking about of how do you, because I think this is the trap so many business owners in general get caught into of working in the business and not on the business. And it is a benefit Randy and I have of not being able to be the nurse where we can't work in the business as much. Now I can do the front desk, so I do get in that trap, as my staff and Randy will tell you. But I really have been more cognizant of it because it's not the highest and best use of my time. Like you said, Bruce, we're active in the chamber, we're active in the community events. That's the highest and best use. So it is a business for people that have a nursing degree or, are a nurse practitioner or even a doctor, and you can still hire for it. But then you can do some of the roles in it, which does benefit it because we're not open if we don't have a nurse there. So that's a downside for us. But if you're the RN, even if you're not doing the work, you can be open. And it depending on the state rules, every state's a little different. But Florida, we have a nurse on site all the time. So that's one thing too that I really wanted to relate it back to was the trap of working in the business versus on the business. And I agree with what Randy said. The nursing industry, the medical industry has just changed a lot. It doesn't seem like people have had a real challenging time finding people. It can take a little while to find the right people, but it usually happens from what I've seen with us and our fellow spa owners.
Let me
Andrea,
go ahead.
Yeah, Andrea just mentioned something right there too in terms of working on the business versus in the business. We're open today in Delray Beach, and Andrea's in California, and I'm helping neighbors take down shutters here in Florida. And we get a lot of questions from people who are considering opening a business. And one of the first questions is, do I have a chance of being a semi-absentee owner? Do I have the opportunity to create a business, start a business, and run a business, and not necessarily just create a job for myself? So I think that is not foremost, but I think people are very conscious about that when they go to open the business. But Bruce, you're right. A lot of them get trapped into, I can do it better than anyone else. And maybe that's what they're most comfortable in is a job. But if it's a business, there are some potential business owners that are very conscious of, do I have to be there all the time? Do I have a chance of building something that I can own a business instead of be the business?
Well, we ran into each other at an event a few months ago that was a franchise show, right? An expo of some kind. And so I got to learn a little bit more. You helped me and other people I spoke with at their different booths. And one of the things that these franchising consultants talk about or asked me, so they were kind of consulting me a little bit, is to your point, Randy, is they want to know, or as you determine, evaluate, and assess your franchise opportunities, the first distinct question they asked me was, do you want to be an owner-operator or do you want to be more absentee? And there are franchises that lean in each direction. So to your point, what do you want? If my listener out there is contemplating getting into their own business and getting a franchise, to Randy's point, well, that's going to be one of the first things you want to self-assess. How dirty do you want to get your hands in the business, or do you just want to build staff around it where you can be absentee and then find the next location, the 5th location, the 10th location, and just keep expanding? But part of that skill set, and this is what I lack, I'm good at a lot of things, I'm not good at this, is team building and putting the right people in place. I just don't know how to assess or attract or interview and look for the qualities of. And so that takes its own skill set as well. So which of the two of you leads that in that sense, or is it something you share equally?
I have done more of the interviewing for this business. Previously, Randy did it, I think, more so for our other business. That was a little bit more joint, but he was really the spearhead on our previous business. So both of us, I would say, have the skill. And, you look for obviously who has the skills you need, but then you look for attitude. You look for what's their vision for themselves. You look for what skill sets do they bring of what you need to put into place. Because, a lot of times there's skill sets that we don't have that we want somebody to bring to the table. And if they have experience from a previous organization, that's critical, right? And in the end, it has to be like, I think Randy mentioned this, a team fit, like the cultural fit, as well as the right attitude. I do think we're in the great resignation, as you said, Bruce. It's just real. It's happening. And I don't know if you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. I love Gary Vaynerchuk and what he's talking about. And I see this just coming is the great never applied for the job. And it's these kids he's talking about. I think he said the age range is about 16 to 30. And he goes, like you said, everybody wants to be their own boss now. So they're not going to go to college. They're not, or they might, but then they're like, okay, I went to college to appease mom and dad and they help pay for it or whatever. But now I'm just going to go make $60,000 a year online because I can, and it's not hard. And then, I'm probably going to be able to turn that into 100 or 120 and I'm good. And I'm never going to come apply at Prime IV as a nurse or to be a vice president. He always talks about it at, his media company. He goes, they're not going to come apply. He goes, you think it's hard now? He goes, just wait. So it is really important, I think, for business owners out there to know that, like, you've got to know what the people in your marketplace, your employee marketplace want. And for us, it's not this way. But the number one thing they're saying is flexibility of being able to work from home or schedule. So we have flexibility of schedule. We don't have a flexibility to work from home because you got to have a person in there to put the IV in, so it's different for us. But in a lot of online businesses, a lot of the traditional businesses, it's just going to be changing. I think
paradigms have shifted.
Huge. Absolutely.
Yeah. The technology has morphed itself to where the paradigms shift, and culturally, again, watch the History Channel and go back to the Industrial Revolution. Look how the world has improved as these technology things of a steam engine and a locomotive and a car and a computer. And we just keep moving that way. And it's adapt or die, right? Darwinism, adapt or die. And so you've got to be prepared. I spoke with a gentleman yesterday that'll be on one of the podcasts, and he's in this movement. He wrote a book and he's got this concept, build your own economy. And it basically talks about the things you need to do to take care of yourself, building your own business, multiple sources of income, health, values, and things of that nature. He's kind of has like a 4-pronged concept to it. But at the epicenter is being more and more self-reliant. As things change, what's the old line? The more things change, the more they remain the same, because it kind of comes full circle, right? It just keeps repeating itself back. So we may be moving away, but ultimately we start coming back around. And so, the farmer and living off of the land evolved into more industrial revolution and big city development and manufacturing. And then all of a sudden, look where we are. We're coming back into, I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to farm my own land. I want to be organic. So yeah, it's interesting there. I want to make sure we talk a little bit more on the health and wellness side of this, and talk more about what Prime IV actually does, the benefit for your clients in that capacity, so people can understand that. And certainly we'll put your contact info in the show notes as well if people want to pursue that conversation for you. But let's talk more specifically on Prime IV. What its deliverable is, what people can expect, and the experience of coming to visit you guys. And Andrea, I think you kind of handle that a little bit more, as you said, from the front line. So why don't you start?
Sure. So we are an IV hydration business, hydration and wellness. So what that is somebody gets sick, they go to the emergency room or urgent care, and often they're given a bag of fluids, right? Because hydration is one of the things that people suffer with the most. They just don't stay hydrated, and it solves a lot of problems. What we've also learned is we're all trained to pop pills. We go and we buy our multivitamin or whatever supplements. We all pop our pills every day. And through the research, the science, we've learned people do not absorb those vitamins. And there's a myriad of reasons. They may not be quality. They've sat on the shelf too long, so they've deteriorated. What was said to be in there is not actually in there. That is non-quality, right? So, and then you also have we're assaulted constantly by toxins. So our digestive tracts are off and they're not able to absorb vitamins for many of us. So many people have GI issues and other health things that prevent that absorption from happening. So anytime you put something through the digestive tract, you're not getting the nutrition that's on the label. If it is there, our food supplies, like you said, why we're going back to farming ourselves and organic, they have depleted the soil. So we know vegetables from the 1950s had far more vitamins in them than they do now, and the minerals. Like our soils are depleted of minerals for the most part, and minerals are crucial to health. Like everybody looks at macros, fats, carbs, proteins, and that's the debate. But what we really have to focus on is this micronutrition, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, amino acids. If we can get those in balance better for people, and those being supplied at a regular, consistent rate, it's amazing how people start to feel a difference in their lives, which is why they're taking the multivitamin, right? They want to feel better. That's the end game. Everybody wants to feel better. We want to feel good. We want to be able to live our lives and do what's important to us. Family, travel, whatever that is for each of us, business, right? So that's the end game, is feel good. So what we've learned is when we put it in through the vein, you're absorbing 100% of what your body needs, and the rest is eliminated because anything going in that bag is water soluble. We do have some injections that are fat soluble. They can only be done as injection, but the body's able to absorb it. So I'll give you one quick anecdotal story from me. I was taking vitamin D orally. I was taking a lot. I was taking 10,000 IUs a day. That's a lot if people know the dosage of vitamin D. And I thought, oh, this is a lot. Let me drop down to 5,000. So that I was probably on 10,000 IUs for 5 months. I dropped down to 5,000 for probably another 3 months, and I got tested. And because I had a low test, and I'd gone up 8 points, which is nothing. And I was still very low. And so with the injections, I was able to get to the range of where I want to be. And again, just real quick with vitamin D, the reason it's so important is, like with COVID, if you had levels at a certain level, you didn't die from COVID with vitamin D levels at above 55 or higher. So it's protective of breast cancer. It's protective of other illnesses from scientific studies that have been done. So people can find those scientific studies to see that. It actually was one of the first times that we heard medical professionals in the mainstream medicine talking about the importance of vitamin D was during the pandemic. So that's COVID, one little tiny thing. Yeah. Why we do what we do.
I'm walking around, I'm 59 now. And until I met you guys and COVID came around, like nobody talked about vitamin D. And all of a sudden it was such a big thing that, oh, you can improve this, that. But before I let you go, Randy, so I want the audience to understand, I've experienced both sides of their service. I've done the injections, and I've done with, as Andrea knows, my wife's hesitation because IVs and needles. Robin was not overly excited about doing it, and up until about 5 minutes of the appointment, still didn't want to go. But I could tell you from personal testimony, it was smooth, easy, painless, enjoyable, and Robin was more pleased and receptive to it, post once she got, people were afraid of needles, right? So you hear something like this, the audience, my listener might get a little bit concerned. Oh, I don't want to go for something like that. And we were in that camp, Robin more so than me. I was open to it, but I want to put people's mind at ease. Like this was a breeze. Their staff there are pros. These are nurses. They know what they're doing. It didn't take 16 tries to find and get me. I didn't walk out of there black and blue. I wasn't, 16 colors the next day. But so I just want to put that endorsement you mentioned.
Thank you.
Randy, go ahead, Randy. Yeah.
Yeah, let me add something on to what Andrea said. I think one of the reasons I love this business is people overcome certain fears to come through the door into the place, in the first place. And you look at what's happened to everyone over the last 2 years, being at home and being afraid of being in crowds and COVID and right on down the line. Once upon a time, I thought that the most popular bag would be a hangover recovery bag, that people think of that.
Sure.
But most of who we have come through the door is like, everything is so out of control. I want to do everything I can for my body. Can you help my immune system? Can you help me overcome this? Can you help me sleep at night and stuff? And I love the fact that our staff can listen to those folks and with the knowledge we've got, be able to help them, as they go back out the door. And some of them even have commented, we've kind of become their second family. But I think that's the trust of letting go and saying, please help me. Here's what I struggle with. And us being able to do that. Now, oh, by the way, if you have a good, clean start to that, and then you take them back to the zero gravity massage chairs and you wrap them in a blanket and you put the booties on and give them a little oxygen and turn the lights down low and turn the music on, it's like, that's a retreat. That's an indulgence. That's a joy, being able to check out for 45 minutes to an hour while they're getting those nutrients that Andrea talks about. And that's a joy.
It's a combination of getting what your body needs, but also giving your mind what it needs. And that's the relaxation and the disconnect. The phone's put away, the lights are turned down. We're so overly stimulated. And so the whole experience was, the benefit of going for a massage, half the time we're falling asleep. You're not even experiencing it because you fell asleep. It's so relaxing. You're like, oh, how did it go? Like, I don't know, I fell asleep. So in this case, maybe that's a good thing too. If you fall asleep in your chairs, they are very comfortable. But it's body, mind, soul, heart, spirit. And so you're taking care of the body, but at the same time, you're also taking care of the mind, if you will, by what you deliver there. Andrew, did you have something else you were going to say?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head of, it's really, we don't have that time for recovery. We have our nervous system on fire. So it's fight or flight, right? Our foot's on the gas pedal, go, go, go. That's just how we live. It's collectively as humans, we seem to have designed it. Now, again, I do think we're shifting. I think the younger generation, as part of the great resignation and the great never going to apply for the job, they're saying, well, that's not for us anymore. But and so, a lot of our clientele, like Randy kind of said, is older. And the two complaints we get the most are, I want to have more energy because we consume it all the time and we don't give ourselves that recovery time. And I want to sleep better. Those are tied, right? They're tied. So it's just an awareness of whatever somebody does, whether they come see me or not, they come see Prime IV to do this. Give yourself that recovery time. It might be 5 minutes of setting your phone down and standing outside with your dog and not being on your phone. Like, that's novel for some people, right? It's whatever it actually is for that person to let their nervous system have some calm. And I don't think people really get that. Even going to a massage, like, okay, you said you fall asleep. Doesn't it sometimes take people 30 minutes into the massage to fall asleep because it takes you that long for that nervous system to let go? So, and again, I know you have a lot of business owners that listen to this, and they're the worst because we wear all the hats in our business of every role as necessary. So you have to schedule it, because without health, like, the rest of it's pointless. If somebody becomes sick, everything else goes away, right? It all becomes secondary for the most part.
Oh, we talk on my earlier show on the health and wellness is the impact of health and wellness on your insurance premiums, your insurability of getting insurance. And tying it into what you're saying is stress is and always has been one of the biggest killers, the heart attacks, the strokes, the blood pressure going up. And so you need ways to decompress, relax. This is one of those experiences that do so. And then I also want to tie in something you helped me with as well, that I'm not getting from my doctor, I'm not getting it from my fitness trainer per se, is you talked earlier about absorption and the combination of things with the hydration. And when I heard you speak at an event, you talked about the differences of spreading out the necessity, of spreading out the zinc with the vitamin C because they don't absorb at the same time. I never do that. I changed my regimen based upon you giving me that information. So, these are things people they take for granted. I'm just going to take a multivitamin and it's going to work for me. But I got a head cold. I was on a plane. I traveled a couple of weeks ago. I came home with a head cold. I'm still struggling with it. I took more zinc. I took more vitamin D. Those are things you need to do. But I was cognizant because of what you told me, like I'm going to take my vitamin C here and I'm going to take my zinc there to make sure they're not offsetting each other. But who's telling you that?
Nobody. Me. Our franchise, that actually came from our franchise owner.
Andrea. But that's, again, these are the things. So, folks, we've been talking about health and wellness, the importance there, and a way that Prime IV helps you with that. Again, we're all about proactivity here at Ask the Plan Man, right? This is a proactive. We want to make sure that your financial plan, your retirement plan, your travel plan is meeting your woody woofy. What do you want for yourself? And that your ultimate plan there, and that poor health doesn't keep you from doing that. Yeah. Poor health doesn't escalate your medical expenses, so you could take more trips. And you could take those trips not in a wheelchair or being bedridden or being on dialysis or oxygen or other things. So we want you to take care of yourselves. I want to make the movement to be more health and wellness in this great resignation, because we're all going to sit on our behinds and never go out and never socialize. And that's going to impact people. And if you don't have a way to de-stress. And so my guests today have been Randy King and Andrea Trout, and they are franchise owners of Prime IV. And we've also talked about the importance and benefits of franchising. So, Andrea, how can people, my listeners, get a hold of you guys if they want to explore locally using the Prime IV experience? You said they're in 40 markets. Obviously, they're not all yours, and they can find them outside of our area. And then if they also want to talk to you guys about franchising opportunities, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Sure. So they can go to our website, which is primevhydration.com, and you can find our location there. You can also, we have a little separate one. It's primevdelray.com just for us. So if they want to find us locally, primevdelray.com. The first one I mentioned has the franchise info on it. So if somebody is more interested in that. And of course, we can put maybe phone numbers in the show notes, Bruce, for if they want to give us a call, that's fine too. Locally, it's the SPA numbers 561-902-9797. Our staff, like we said, take great care of people. So you can call and just book and say, you saw us on the Plan Man. Ask the Plan Man.
Great. Excellent. Anything else before we close?
I think the thing I would say is kind of like what you said, is be your own advocate. Health and wellness is our own personal responsibility. And I think too many people rely on the white coat of doctors, and it's just changing. They're stressed out too. They have little time with each patient. And so be your own advocate. And thank you, Bruce.
100%. Oh, my pleasure. So folks, you've been listening to this episode of Ask the Plan Man, where we talked with Andrea and Randy about health and wellness, as well as the benefits and opportunities in the franchising space. I'd love to hear from you. We'd love you to share this with your friends and colleagues. Come to asktheplanman.com. Call me at 844-PLAN-MAN. Our website, email Bruce at asktheplanman, YouTube, podcast. You can find us everywhere and anywhere. I'm happy to get you in touch with Andrea and Randy as you need. Remember, folks, if you need some advice, always get it right. Come ask the Plan Man. Andrea and Randy, thank you so much for being on the show today. We look forward to talking to you again.
When you need some advice, never sacrifice, always get it right. Ask the Plan Man. Finance, insurance, and more.